Good morning, game artists. We have a little bit of lecture this morning and follow-along exercise for purposes of using for assessment material. So, this morning we'll be covering, did we go over creating custom collisions in Unreal yet? Okay. I'll go over that briefly, as well as we'll be doing a follow-along exercise in order to trigger a light in our scene via walking through an area and triggering a light, similar to this. Ooh, red light. So it only turns on as you pass by it. And we're also going to create a blueprint specifically for changing the resolution of our final build. That way we can take nice screenshots. So, other than that, I'll let you guys go back to work once we're done with all of that for the rest of the day. I was going to go over some of the video stuff and level sequence editor stuff, but I might save that for next week, a little bit closer to the deadline, because it's not 100% relevant since we can take screenshots of our scene and be fine. However, if you want to go the extra mile, take a video, good for you. So first things first, I'm going to close the scene. I'm going to open up a blank scene just to show you collision. So file, new level. I'll just make a new default level. So what I want to do is I want to look at something that I brought in. So let's say the tomb mesh, or actually the mausoleum. If I double click on the mausoleum, my UVs are bad on it, that's why it's doing that. But whenever you import any model into the content browser, and actually I'll import another file just to show what happens, it will ask you to auto-generate collisions. And some of you guys may have noticed that and kind of relying on that just to kind of auto gray box your scene, which can be good for a majority of the stuff if it's simple enough, but it should not be, it's not going to give you 100% accuracy. So what I need to bring is Zelda walls, ceilings? Yeah, walls and ceilings mesh. Okay. So your FBX import options gives you options such as auto-generate collision. Yours might be turned on by default. I highly suggest you turn it off, especially for things that are not just a flat surface or something that contains a volume. So I'll show an example of what this does. If I auto-generate collision on this, you'll want to turn off import materials, import textures. Some of you guys, you may have noticed it brought in like automatic like Lambert ones and everything else. We're going to create our own in Unreal anyway, so we might as well just turn this off by default. So we can just import it ourselves, have a little bit more control than trusting Maya to do all the work for you. And if you have any other import translation kind of preset values, otherwise all these other settings are good. I'm going to import. Okay. Now for most things that you create, the auto-generate collisions will do a pretty good job of it. Whoa, my camera's a little too fast. There we go. So this is an auto-generated collision, and you can turn off and on collision up here. So this is fine, but honestly this probably isn't efficient because it's generating kind of mesh on top of it. For the most part, in a game engine, it'll have its own sets of rules for creating collision volumes that you probably want to use over using some auto-generated one. This is somewhat accurate, but if you want to be a little bit more efficient with it, or have a little bit more control, I can just delete this collision volume and add something under collision. You have a lot of different options here. So I would use something maybe along the lines of a sphere simplified collision volume. So it creates collision volume around your object as just a simple sphere that you can then tweak if you wanted to in various size and directions. So if you wanted to make your, nonsense rock, that way you bunny hop over it and you're not like hovering over the rock, this is incorrect. You want to get it as close as possible, but this is how you create your own custom collision volume with that for something simple like that. But for something like this, where if I just trust the default collision, this is a kind of simplified collision. So if I were to just import this in, it might look something like this, just setting a normal box collision, which again is not 100% accurate. If you wanted to be able to actually walk into this thing, what we'll have to do is actually set multiple collision volumes where they need to go. Now, by default, its settings are a little too strong in terms of scale. So it's set to, where's my scale? 0.25. Let's just change that to like 0.0625. That way I have a little bit more control over it. So I might do something like this. I might Alt and click and duplicate it to create the bottom, and create the walls in a similar way. So I'm trying to make the left and right walls here. Yeah, I gotta change that scale setting. There you go. Close enough. Yeah. So something along the lines of this would be a little bit more accurate, quote unquote. So if I save this asset now and try to bring it in, let's scale up my floor. Put a light in my scene so I actually see what I'm doing. There we go. And hit play. I should now be able to bump into it, and hopefully, if my character scale is correct, go inside of it. Unfortunately, I would probably need to scale this up a bit more to actually walk inside of it. There we go. Let's do that. Now play. Whoops. Make sure your player start is not inside of your object. So where's my player start? There you are. Yeah, don't make sure it's not actually colliding inside of your collision volume. There we go. Yay, I can actually go in and out of it now. Versus if I had trusted the auto-generate collision, I would not have been able to. Now you can be more accurate, and let's just do the collision mesh, this one. I could kind of trust Unreal with more refined settings on the right here for collision. You can set to simple and complex. You can use simple collision as complex, or use complex collision as simple. This will actually create collision based on the actual mesh itself. But the problem is that talking about optimization, if you have a lot of objects using this type of collision, your game will chug. Meaning that it's looking at every single point on this model as a point of collision, versus it's always more inexpensive to use the kind of default Unreal collision volumes. It's easier for those to process. It's always easier. Same goes for Unity. Same goes for any other game engine. Bringing in your own custom collision It's a little bit more expensive than using the defaults and just kind of manipulating those volumes. Okay. And some of you guys may have seen this issue where you have something like this and you check your collisions, or you kind of have like your overall scene and it creates that. That's what it's doing. That's auto-generating collision, but it is a convex collision. So concave. Yeah, I always mix those two up. Yeah, cave. Yeah, the cave. Yeah. Meaning that you can't actually go into this volume. It doesn't understand that that interior part is a negative shape. So you'd have to kind of assign it to do that, to be that. There is a way to kind of invert that function. Like use as convex or yeah, somewhere. But honestly, I would trust more if you actually just created your own collision volumes rather than relying on auto-generating it. So that sort of makes sense for a lot of. I know a lot of you guys were having this problem with kind of bringing in kind of your gray boxing scene, and you put in your player start, and your player start can't move, or he like shuffles a little bit and then he falls out the world, or he falls out the scene. That's what's happening. Your player start is colliding the inside of a collision volume, and that's what's happening. So we got to fix our collisions on the base level by double clicking on the mesh, adding our custom collisions, and going from there. No, I don't want to autosave. Go away. Cool. So that covers that. Now, what we're going to talk about are blueprints, or adding functionality in our scene. So I want everybody to open up a new scene in Unreal, or a new level, I should say, and start with the default. I'm not going to save. All right. So we're going to make an interior space, kind of a longer hallway. So we're going to just use the normal basic geometry, or boxes or cubes or whatever. We can use this one that's already in our scene as a start. So what we'll do is elongate this one. So we'll just scale it out a bit. Whoop, not move it. Scale it. Something like that. You can make it bigger, smaller, whatever you want. And what we're going to do is we're just going to create the other walls of it. I want to make it totally an enclosed space. I don't want light to come into this thing. So what we're going to do is just rotate, Alt, and click, and just create a duplicate. I'm just going to line it up as best as I can. Make sure you don't have any gaps. Alt and click, drag, and create another duplicate. Alt, click, and drag up. I don't know why it's somehow offset, but sure. Is mine skewed somehow? I'm gonna make a new level, or open my previous one. Hold down Alt and click and drag. Yeah. It's not just tap. It's hold down Alt and click. All right. Let me delete this stuff. All right. And what I want you to also do, so that way you can actually see inside of this thing, is create 2-point lights at the ends of the hallway. So something like this. And if you're having trouble seeing anything, go to, instead of lit mode, go to unlit. And that should be able to, there you go. So it should be looking something like this, a hallway with 2-point lights at each end. Just catch you up, we're doing a follow-along exercise to do blueprints. We're up here. Oh. It's not on your desk or up on a filing cabinet? Yep, there you go.
Did you close it?
Wait, what?
Did you close it completely?
Yeah, let's completely close it in. And let's just put 2-point lights in there. And I would say move your player start instead of the very dead center. Move him at one end of the hallway. Because we're going to put a light in the center a little bit later to activate it. Yes. You're in game mode. Were you like home?
His, yeah. I think his son is,
Okay. Okay, I think you were doing something where it was like, I'm not sure what that is, but that was set for that. Try rebuilding it now. Uh-oh. I don't know which position. How did you build your line? Okay. Oh, it's weird. What's it? Did you?
It might be that right there.
Oh, you put a directional line?
So
Okay.
I just,
Yeah, just a couple of point lines.
Yeah,
That's fine. I mean, we can. Oh, you put a basic.
that's not Dirk.
Fair enough. That's fine.
Go towards the ceiling, because that's where lights go.
Yeah.
You put mine down in the corner. That's not where lights go.
Don't tell me where to put my lights, Ryan.
Listen here. These lights are a fixed point in space, and they have no dangling attached.
Listen, Sonny, I'll do it. I'll do whatever I want with my lights.
You don't know anything about
I don't know where you live, but I will find you.
You're doing that
piece of furniture in your house 3 inches to the left. Throw your entire system ripped.
Well, do you know, I live in that house and I can adjust all the pieces back to where they were originally.
Like, you're gonna walk in, you're gonna
Don't bring a directional light, use point lights.
No, because his mom moves everything all
Is
the
that a
time,
directional
so
light or is that a
probably wouldn't
point
even
light?
question it.
Yeah.
True.
I think it's because you
Mom's an
adapt
astronaut.
yours.
Oh yeah, good luck.
You can try
moving all the
building your
furniture
lighting
in
and
his
seeing.
sister's room.
Yeah, you'll have to be a full-time job.
Okay.
You'd want to cry
This
after.
trips me out.
Okay. So if
This trips me out.
Okay, if some of you are having trouble with your lighting, I've seen some of you having it like says preview only. You may have to build your lighting.
It went away after.
It went away after you moved the stuff?
Yeah,
After you build it? Okay, so for building your lighting, again, let's get out of unlit mode. Robin.
yeah, you gotta get lit. Remember, children, you gotta get lit.
So if you need to build your lighting, right now these are set as stationary lights, which are sort of mixed between real-time and static. For the purposes of this, let's set them to static. So if you select, you can select both of your lights actually. And under the what's called the mobility, under transform, it means a static light can be changed in game. It is a fully baked light with fastest rendering. We'll set it to static. And then what we'll do is if we go under build, a little drop down menu next to build, it'll ask you to, you can build the lighting only. And if you wanted to, you can change the lighting quality. Right now mine's set to high. Yours might be set to preview. You can set it to preview if you want, because it's the fastest way to do it. And then we'll click on it and then build lighting only. So it should bake our lights in our scene. And I'll give you a little percentage bar. And now these lights should be baked into the mesh, or the UVs of the mesh. So we have a super dark hallway now if we use the default settings of our light. And I kind of want this because I'm going to brighten up the center here with another light, but I'm going to only activate it whenever I walk through it. So, again, 2-point lights. Spooky, scary hallway. No, you can leave them on. You can leave them there, but just build the lights. Set them to static here. You can just leave them there. That's fine. Yeah. If you want to delete them, sure. But if you try to build the lighting again, those lights will the baking will disappear. So I usually leave them in. Nice. Okay, so okay. Just to give you an idea, these are set to static. If I delete them, my lighting information is still there because I've baked those lights in my scene. Those are baking down to the light maps. Remember that second set of UVs that we created before on most meshes? That's what it's baking to, independent of our normal texture. However, I build a lot of, as I'm working, if I start changing lights, and if a lot of stuff's set to static, I'll usually build my lighting a good bit as part of my look development process. So I really won't want to delete lights until maybe as a last step. I usually leave them in anyway. If you have something that requires, let's say, a third-person character walking through an area, and he's supposed to cast shadows on the floor, static lights won't work because you're not actually baking that shadow. The light's already baked. So it's not going to cast shadow if you use that normal static light. What will work is more of either a stationary or a movable light. So stationary would be kind of a mix between the two. So it is baking down the information around, but it's also able to have lights being cast down on the floor, or shadows being cast down on the floor if a character passes through it. A movable light, I would say, is something more along the lines of if you bump into an object like a chandelier or something and it's swinging, or a swinging light, that's more of what it's supposed to be. Used type of scenario that a movable light would be used for. Again, really expensive, but it can prove really accurate results. All right, so I want to make a third point light right now. So you can Alt click and drag on one of them, or you can create a whole new one in our scene. It doesn't matter, but we're going to put him right near the center, in the hallway in between. And let's make this guy pure red. And let's turn up the intensity a good bit. And we can set it to a stationary light. You don't have to set it to static because we're not baking it down. It's going to be kind of an activated light, an interactive light-ish. Yeah.
How do I break down the other two lights?
I don't want you to bake down with that third light in there.
No. Oh.
It's just a bit slow.
Yeah. To bake down the lights, it's going to be under Build, the Options menu, and you want to build lighting only. There is a shortcut for it. Control plus Shift plus semicolon. If you really want to do that. Control Shift.
Semi.
Yeah. That's a weird one. But that's how you do that. And you can also build other things before you actually create a build. Because with this project, with this thing that we're doing right now, we're also going to create a build for it. I'll show you guys how to create an executable file for your video game. Yeah. That's today. That's this demo. Okay, so if I go ahead and try to play my scene, it is just dark hallway red. Which, yeah, it's fine, but I want this to be a scary game, right? I don't want this red to activate until I pass through it. I want it to be like, you know, all of a sudden you pass by, red light, green light. No, we're not playing that game. So what I want to do is create a sort of a volume that I'm going to pass through that activates that light, that turns off and on the trigger for the light. So first off, I'm going to set my visibility on my light off. Under our details panel here, if you scroll down, there is a little tick box for... One second, I gotta find it. Okay, it's under rendering. It is the tick box called visible. For anything that you're also working on, just to let you know, there's another tick box called actor hidden in game. So if you're just trying to do some tests or like use a scale reference or something next to it, you turn that one on and it won't be visible whenever you actually build your game. But that's not the one we're worried about right now. Under rendering, turn off visible.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so it makes it go away in our scene. So it's not actually visible in our game. So, still not what I need. I want this thing to actually activate whenever I pass next to it. So what I'm going to do is, there are different types of volumes that we can create. If you look on the left under where basic, cinematic, visual effects, there's one called volumes. Now, you have a lot of different options. So if you have like a gigantic scene, you would do something like light mass importance volume. It may give you an error if you have like a gigantic scene and it doesn't know like what's the most important areas in our scene to render the lighting in. But the one that we're worried about right now, a lot of this stuff is more specific to programmers than actually gameplay functionality. But one of the main ones that we're going to be using right now is called trigger volume. So trigger volume, if we just click and drag it into our scene, we'll create a small box. So this is an area, kind of area of effect. If you walk through it, it'll do something. But we have to tell it what to do. So let's make it about the size of kind of the area in our hallway around that red light. So just kind of scale it out however you need. If you need to, turn off lit mode. That way you can actually see what you're doing. There you go. So it should become something like this. I'm making mine a little bit smaller so that way you guys can see properly. There we go. So it should be kind of fitting within this area here. Blaze, make sure you try to catch up. Okay. Cool. So we have a trigger volume, we have a light that's turned off. I want to tell this trigger volume using blueprints, whenever I pass next to it, turn this light on. So the way that we do that is first, let's go ahead and just select our red light. Red light is selected. So in the option box at the top next to the button for blueprints, because this is what we want to create is part of a blueprint, there'll be an option down called level blueprints, open level blueprint. So this is kind of the blueprints for our overall level. It's another node-based editor. I'm going to leave this up for a sec so that way you guys can see where it is. Under the option box for blueprints, open level blueprint.
Do I start with a blank environment?
Yeah. What you'll do is create, just use the base scene and just duplicate and create a like enclosed hallway, and you're creating 2 point lights at the end of it and creating a third red light in the center, and you turn off the visibility. Somebody can catch you up on the visibility thing.
I can do everything. You can probably.
Yeah, I'm also recording this if we need to double check it and look at it. Alright, so everybody got that open? Alright, so let's open it up, take a look at it. And guess what? More node-based editing.
I like this.
Yay. So this is kind of visual programming in a way. No scripting required. Yes. It's not that painful. You can do a lot of stuff with blueprints. You can create even your own custom first-person controller. You can do a whole lot of different stuff. Programmers, it's kind of a mixed bag on if blueprints really work well or not. But for us, depending on what we're trying to do, kind of an easier way to kind of dip your toes into programming or creating functionality within our games. So what we're going to do is we can see that we already have some in here. We're not going to use these just yet, but these are some to keep in mind. Event begin play. So this is whenever you actually start your level. This is the node that kind of activates whenever we start a level. Kind of, whenever we start the game, it'll trigger whatever's next to it or connected to it. So what we want to do is, because we selected our point light in our scene first, coming into this menu, we're going to right click, and you notice that you have a lot of options here for like cinematics, automation, AI, or whatever. But you notice at the very top, they have add events for point light 3, or what if you called yours red light, whatever. You can also create a reference to point light 3, and that's the one that we want to use. So we're going to create a reference for point light 3. So it's whenever you highlight it over, it says it stores a reference to an actor in the level. So this only works if you already have something selected, and then come back to this menu, right click, and it'll kind of be already there. So we want to create a reference to the point light, and it'll create this node in our blueprint editor. All right. All right, are we there? Ish, getting there. All right. So once you do that, what I want to do is then drag out from this node, and I want to create, tell it what to do. I wanted to say, okay, well, I want this point light to toggle visibility. So if we click and drag from the node and just kind of let go, it'll ask us to look for an action or add an action to this. So action taken on a point light reference. The easiest way is just going to be to type it in. I want to toggle visibility. So if I type in visibility, yeah, so it's going to be the very last one, toggle visibility point light component. So you're creating a function right now, a function for this point light in our scene. So it adds a target in between this node, and you can kind of move stuff around if you need to organize it. So the point light is the target for toggling visibility. Yeah.
Like way up there. A mile.
Cool. So we have target visibility on. We have nothing really connecting to it. To run a process, to compile a script, we use the little gearboxes up top, and we press the compile button. Wow, it's called Dirty Needs to be Recompiled. Wow, okay. Literally taking the gear concept to a different level, just like the gears are greased or something. I don't know. That's weird. But in any case, if we press play, nothing happens. Why is that? Anybody want to take a guess? It's not connected to the trigger volume. You are correct. So what we need to do is add that trigger volume in there. We need to set a function or an event from that trigger volume. So if we go to our world outliner, go to our trigger volume, what we can then do is right click on our trigger volume, and you'll notice near the bottom you have options for level blueprint events, and you can add an event. Now you have a lot of different options here. So like on take any damage, any point damage. We haven't set this to do that, to be collapsible or anything else. The easiest way to do this is under collision, on actor begin overlap and on actor end overlap. So we need to add these two functions because we want it to be that whenever we walk into this volume, it's activating the light, and whenever we walk out of it, it turns it off. So first, we're going to add the event for on actor begin overlap. And notice it adds it to our blueprint, or leveled blueprints here. And let's just move it up on top over here. And I'll go ahead and also add the on actor end overlap. If I right click again, go to add event on actor end overlap. And I'll add it to our scene, our blueprint editor. Whoop. So what we need to do is we need to actually connect these nodes to this toggle visibility. So let's use the very first one called execute. If you highlight over, it's the white one, the right arrow. We're going to click and drag it and connect to the toggle visibility for each one. And I'll just organize a bit.
What do those two red ones say? I can't read them from here.
They are on actor begin overlap. So what you're going to do is you have to create a trigger volume in your scene. So if you go right here, Blaze,
The box trigger?
go to volumes right here. Look up.
I see them.
Go to the very bottom. There's one called trigger volume.
I see it. Okay, just click it and drag it in.
Click and drag it in. Scale it up. That way it's kind of around your point light. That red point light. But remember, we have to compile the script. What's up?
Natural light, would it have to be directly over it? Like, say that you're trying to like indicate where someone goes on a game and they get to a certain area and it runs the volume, and it like light up in that area, like top right.
Yeah, absolutely.
100 feet away.
Yeah.
Top on.
Yeah, and actually we can do that. We can test that out real quick. I just put it in the center because I was just like, walk through. Oh, it turned on the light, like a motion activated light. But we can test it out in a second, sure. But let's just compile the script right now. So make sure to hit the gears button for compile. It'll give you a green checkbox whenever it's good to go. And then let's just play our scene and try to walk through a volume, and it should light up red. Ooh, ah. You have to make sure, Blaze, your point light, that red point light, is turned off by default under visible. Under rendering visible, you want to turn that off.
That's already done, yes.
Okay, and then
Whoa, that's cool. I like that.
There's like some dead space stuff going on.
yes.
Look at the lines moving.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't even notice that.
What is being called?
Ah. So again, kind of visualizing the
Trigger node working. That's cool.
yeah. I didn't have two monitors at the time while I was doing this. So I didn't even see that.
Yeah.
So that's really
Well, I know you don't have to monitors.
yeah. It's unfortunate for me.
Laptop light.
Hashtag
Just bring your
laptop.
TV from home and
That's true.
an HDMI.
Cool.
Donald's gonna have like close his computer and just use the
So-
HD TV.
So everybody make their thing. Anybody sit here? Great.
It's like, or, if you're custom building it,
Okay, so now that we've done that, we made some basic functionality in our scene. What's up?
Are you recording this?
Yeah.
Let me know when you're done with it.
Yeah, I'm going to try to finish up in like 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes or so. Okay. Yeah, it'll be very soon, I promise. Okay, so what we want to do is I want to now create a build, an actual executable file. I know, right? Pretty cool. But I want to make sure a couple things are set up in the first place. We need to make sure that this will be the default level that it actually builds, because by default it's going to use that scene with the chairs in it. And our resolution is going to be stuck at, I believe by default it's set to 720. So unfortunately there's no other way to do it other than blueprints. So, but you guys get some more exercise with it. So first, let's make sure we save our scene. So file, save level, or save current, if you have already saved it. And just call it blueprint demo or spooky hallway, Twilight Zone,
Light bright.
light bright. Yeah.
Those toys haven't been sold in so long, and I still remember the ads.
What, library?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, they're great. It's a vinyl thing.
You're saving the level file. You're saving this level. That way you can actually build from it. If you have a folder in a subfolder called levels in your current project, that's fine. So I usually have a folder called levels that I put stuff into in your current project that you're working from. You just drop it in. It doesn't matter. I just wanted to just save the level. Yeah, not. Don't put it in the starter content. Yeah. Don't put it in the starter content. Put it in somewhere else. Stay organized, right? All right. Our level saved. Cool. So what we need to do is edit some of our preferences, so that way I tell the computer whenever it's time to actually create a build, to create an executable file, it will create this, start from this level. So under our project settings. So edit project settings. There's a lot of different menus that pop up. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Is one stuck? Okay, good. Cool. So currently, this is what initially pops up.
That's your cave.
That is my cave, yes. You can fill out copyright notices and whatever else in here. We're not going to worry about that. What we're going to go to is under our project on the left side, there's a thing called map and modes. So project, maps and modes. So here it's setting the default maps. So right now mine's set to another level that I've already created a build from. In this case, it was my abandoned mine. I need to actually set it to my current level. So editor startup and game default map. Let's just change this to our blueprint level that we just made. And just for good measure, I'm setting everything to it right now. Okay, there we go. So editor startup, game default map, or server default map, it doesn't matter. Those will be our default maps in our scene.
Server default map also.
Yeah, why not?
Transition is needed.
Nah, leave it alone. This will be more for whenever we're actually creating games by the end of the year, is where we'll probably a programmer will handle a lot of this stuff. creating the actual build. But for our sake, we're doing a demo or showing off how to actually create a build to take our screenshots in. This is where it's gonna live. So once you change those settings, we should be good to build. If we really wanted to, we're just gonna close this. The problem is that our build will only set it to the default 720p. You know, I want nice 1920 by 1080 renders of my scene.
4K 144 hertz.
So you really could import. You actually set whatever resolution you want through blueprints. If you notice that if you go to your build options, you have a lot of different options here for. Oh, actually, no, it's under play. My bad. Yeah, once you've set your map, probably you can. You'll get a lot of different options here for mobile preview, new editor windows, standalone games, simulate. We'll be creating a standalone game, but we're not going to do it through here. I'm just showing you if you wanted to kind of quickly test in another window. It won't save out your executable file from here. We actually want to create our actual executable, and that's using our file package project. So under file package project, Windows 64-bit. I'm skipping a step, but I'm just showing you where we'll be coming back to. Don't click on this just yet. I'm just showing you where it is. This is where you'll actually create your executable build from. But first, let's fix the resolution. So we're going to go to our blueprints, our open level blueprint, if you already have it open. So I want to add an event on startup. So whenever the game starts, I want it to change the resolution using what's called a console command. So what we need to do is we're using the event begin play. The event being on begin play, meaning you start the game or it plays the game. I need to add a node to this. So the node that we're going to add is called execute console command. So from here, click and drag, and you'll type in console command, or just start typing in console, and you'll get a function called execute console command. And click on it. So you have to click and drag the little string out from our execute icon and console command. So it should look like this. Execute console command connected to it on event begin play. But we didn't actually set the command. So we need to actually tell what it's going to do on startup. On startup, we want to change our resolution. So I will type it in on another document to show like full screen. So r.setRes 1920 by 1080f being resolution. I'm going to type it in real quick and I'll copy it over. So give me 1 second. Word, or actually Notepad.
Is the by X just a regular X?
Yeah, it's a regular X. So
Yes.
there you go. So it should be something like this. And you're going to type that in next to the command section. So let me type it in mine. Under command, I'm just going to control V to paste. Hit enter. I'll leave that notepad up. Okay. So everybody's got that? Or getting there? Cool. Alright, so we set the resolution at 1920 by 1080. If you have a 4K monitor, sure, you can punch in 4K resolution if you want, 38, whatever, by whatever. Anyway, 1920 by 1080, give us nice clean renders, and then we're going to compile the script. Don't forget to compile. And then just save your current scene, save your current level, I should say. And now it's time to create our build. Oh boy. So we're gonna package our project. So File, Package Project, Windows, and Windows 64-bit. See, they're mixing terminology here. It says build, cook, and package your game. I'm like, are we building it or are we cooking something? We're baking our lighting. We're building our level. Okay.
It's like a fine.
Yeah.
Compiling our code, we're doing everything.
We're
all-
brewing our game design.
It's like Discord startup messages.
Oh, I have no idea. I have never used Discord.
Oh, well, it's got your meme start, like compiling tachyon fields
Oh, okay.
when you start up Discord.
Some Star Trek techno babble.
Or just straight up actual memes, like firing all the lasers.
Nice. Okay, so we're using it for Windows 64-bit because we're using Windows 64-bit. Click on it, and it'll ask you to browse for a folder. Save it somewhere, maybe in your locker. Make a folder called Builds.
Still can't use their locker camera.
Wait, what?
Can't use the internet.
Oh, in this case, just put it maybe on your desktop if you want to, or somewhere in your C drive for now, and we'll migrate it over later. So put it somewhere where you can find it in a folder. So I usually put mine, and you can make a new folder from here if you want to. So right here I have Unreal Builds. I'm going to make a new folder. I'm calling this Spooky Hallway. And I'm going to click on it to make sure that it is looking for the Spooky Hallway folder. You can put it somewhere for now. Just don't put it within the same project. Don't put it within the don't put it inside the Unreal project. It's always good to put your build outside of it. I'm not sure if Unreal handles it the same way, but if you try to do a build in Unity that way, if you try to put it within your project settings, it's actually going to be unplayable. So, for safe bet, put it somewhere else. So once you do that, hit OK. And it'll say Packaging Project for Windows at the bottom right. And we'll let that run for a minute. And it'll do, if you have your headphones on, it'll do like this weird little sci-fi sound once it's done. Actually, let me turn mine on. There we go. And now we wait. This one shouldn't hopefully take too long. There it is. I heard somebody's. Of course mine's slower. I was thinking about it. This is the twiddling thumb stage. This is
Preparing the bread.
preparing the bread, yes. Mine shouldn't be taking this long.
It's still thinking about it.
Yeah. If yours is done, try to find the folder for it.
Ah, not internet speed.
Using footage, make a comp, drag it on a little film strip. Film strip. Right there. Alright. You're just gonna drag your stuff in above it. Here. And then
That's so cool.
Yeah. Ready to build?
Oh yeah.
Played it?
What's
Yeah.
the deal with
With that second
making
icon, it looks like a circle.
our character not fly around like we're at?
That would be a custom blueprint to create like a first-person character from scratch. We're not going to be covering that. That's going to be a long process. For now, it is. You'll create a flying character. If you want to, I can send you some resources on how to do that. Because I actually need to build mine. Test it out with.
So this is how we're going to do that. I'm going to show you, because I'm going to delete what I did.
Now yours actually may give you a weird error if you haven't built your lighting. You may need to rebuild your lighting in your scene to not get that error message to pop up, because we added the light afterwards.
Saturation.
What
are we supposed to make it black and white?
I think to get rid of that error message, you will want to build lighting and package it.
White, which it almost already is. And then the tree line to be black. So I can kind of swing that out there, swing that right to the black and white, right?
The default character will be like a
But before
flying
we can use
character.
it, we have to
You would have to
pre-compose
create your
it.
own from scratch.
So this guy here,
You can import like
which has all its levels and crap on it, we go from there, pre-compose.
That's the noise, yeah.
And we're going to move all the attributes as new compose. That's all we should be checking. Never use that. Just click that, hit OK. And we get it all pre-comp. All those levels, all that stuff is now like kind of baked into it. And we're going to do the same thing for your image sequence. We grab these two guys and we're going to pre-compose them.
Player is so short.
Control all attributes.
It does not look
Might
like
name
that.
this one like Mantis. So you have your Mantis and you have your footage that's black and white. Well, I put the Mantis underneath that. And we're going to use that as a luminescent. And there you go. And then you even see him in between the leaves because the little white holes that show up. Yeah, and then you can do level adjustments.
Some of you are asking about
Like, put another
a
level.
custom character to walk around our scene in. That is again using blueprints. I'm not going to walk through that because maybe a little unnecessary for what we need to do. But if you
How to escape.
yeah.
Oh, you got
Yeah. There's a way to export out like an FPS controller from one project to another if you needed to. So that's probably, or from one scene to another. I'm not going to worry about that right now because I honestly want you guys more to focus on actually just building your stuff and putting it in your scene. More so than using like creating a custom character. Because I'm not really worried about you guys building that so much as making it look pretty at this point. So once our build is created,
how to leave.
I'm going to open up my build.
Alt.
I can do this.
You have to also click on it. Alright, you're fine.
So spooky hallway, Windows, no editor, and intro project. There we go. And again, I probably should have. Uh-oh. Something happened.
Nice game. Love it.
Yeah, mine got disconnected somehow. So we will Alt F4. That's unfortunate.
For some reason, that
The video driver didn't like it.
Yeah. Well, it likes this. Let's see if it likes my other scene better. Yeah. We'll try this one, because I think this worked yesterday, right? You guys were able to see this?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll do this instead. Yay, it worked. Okay. So, in my scene, I'm able again to move around and fly around through stuff. For the purposes of taking renders, what I'm going to do whenever I like a particular shot or I get my camera where I want it to be, I will hit F9 on my keyboard. F9. You may notice that your screen will kind of pause a little bit, but it's taking a snapshot at that point in space.
A singular snapshot.
And I'll just take another one, just so we know. About right here should be good. Hit F9, so you can take multiples at once, or multiples while in the same stuff. Yeah, you can move your camera and just yeah. And to close our window, because we don't really have the close button, what we'll have to do is Alt F4 to get it out of this, to exit the game. Exactly. Again, you can create a custom blueprint to create, like, on press down escape key, do this escape game or unplay game. Again, you can use a ton of stuff with blueprints. I'm not going to get into all of it. We're just introducing the concept. But to find out where your screenshots are saved, this is important. So under that build file, you'll have a folder called engine and the name of your scene or level. Mine is called Zelda Face Shrine. So I'm going to double click on it and go to saved and go to screenshots. Windows no editor. And that's where it saves all my screenshots. And if I take a look, there are the two screenshots I just took.
Man, I don't have to use the print screen anymore.
You don't have to do print, well, for, in this case, for Unreal. No, you don't have to use the snipping tool. You don't have to use the print screen. You can hit F9 and it'll create screenshots for you as long as it's in this build. And that's why I told you guys to change the resolution. That way it's nice, ready to go renders at 1920 by 1080. So portfolio ready renders. Cool. So now, if this is the project you've been using, what you'll do is, again, just create that custom script, custom blueprint again for on play, create execute console command, set resolution for your own game levels. Make sure that in your editor settings it is set to the proper level. Package your project, and you're good to go. And you'll be able to use this as part of your assessment as well. Now, the main build I want to see is obviously your main one with your nice lighting and rendering and all that stuff. But if possible, if we have time, if you've been saving up versions of your level, seeing kind of the early stages, the early gray box, if you have that all done. I know a lot of you are probably just working out of the one scene, I'm guessing, right? Okay, you saved up? Yeah. I usually save up multiple versions of my level as I'm going on, just in case I need to go back or testing out different lighting scenarios. Whenever we get to actually working alongside with the programmers, again, that concept won't be there. We'll just work through version control in GitHub or another one called Perforce and just work off of one version of a file. Yep. So that concludes that. So now you all have a version of this scene or have interactive gameplay elements within our scene, and you can also include that as part of your assessment material. You can actually, if you wanted to, we can use OBS and take a small little video file of us playing our game. So right now I'm using OBS to actually record this video, but I will probably do that more next week, showing you how to actually create video. Sound good?
Yep.
All right.
Wait, is that guest speaker coming tomorrow?
That guest speaker is going to be next Wednesday. Yeah, next Wednesday is the guest speaker. So that concludes the lecture. And you guys have any other questions? No? All right, let's make stuff.